Good evening and welcome to tonight's Community Town Hall hosted by the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners. I'm Carly Moore. I'm going to be helping out facilitate tonight's discussion with your commissioners, Rachel Zenzinger, Lesley Dahlkemper, and Andy Kerr. We also have other subject matter experts joining us who we will introduce along the way. So tonight, we plan to focus on three main topics while also answering questions submitted by the community. Those topics include federal and state funding and service impacts to county services and programs, public safety power shutoffs, or PSPS for short, and all things parks and open space. We want to invite you to share any questions you may have. Although tonight's discussion will focus mainly on those topics, feel free to ask about any county issues important to you. Now, if you have a question, please submit it in the Q&A section. You can do this at any time, but you do need to be joining from a computer in order to do that. Now let's get started. Commissioner Rachel Zenzinger, we'd like to talk about some of the latest federal and state funding impacts on county programs. In 2025, the county formed a task force to monitor federal and state impacts on county services. We're joined tonight by county staff who've been involved in this process. We have Mary O'Neill, Director of Grants and Procurement, Gina Sagan, Director of Business and Finance, Tim Young, Case Management Agency Director, and Jesse Antonucci, Community Assistance Director. Commissioner, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Carly. Good evening, everyone. I'm Commissioner Rachel Zenzinger, and I represent District 1, which is in the northern part of the county, covering Westminster, Arvada, and parts of Golden. We are currently, right now, navigating a perfect storm for human services. In Colorado's state-supervised, county-administered model, the state sets the policies, but Jefferson County, we are the entity that are the boots-on-the-ground provider. We are the ones conducting interviews and investigating abuse or neglect. Right now, that work is under massive strain. A combination of federal legislative changes and state-level TABOR constraints have created a structural deficit, leading to an estimated $1.2 billion reduction in state revenue this fiscal year. So the impacts of that are real and immediate. Let's look to first Medicaid. We're looking at a projected $14 billion cut over the next decade. Food and childcare. These federal shifts are forcing the state to pay more for SNAP administration, while attempted freezes on TANF and childcare assistance have left families in limbo. And then there are the restrictive measures. These are to bridge gaps. The state is already implementing tighter Medicaid eligibility and cuts to disability services. My goal tonight is to bridge the gap between these high-level budget figures and the reality for our Jeffco staff and neighbors. So let's go ahead and dive into some questions so that we can paint a clearer picture of how we are trying to protect our most vulnerable residents amidst these disruptions. So we're going to start off first with Mary. Mary, you've been involved with the Federal Impacts Task Force and monitoring the financial impacts on the county. So can you give us an overview of what you are currently monitoring?
Thank you, Commissioner, for having us here to talk about this important issue. As of today, the confirmed fiscal impact to Jefferson County from federal funding changes is approximately $12.6 million. And that's not a projection, that's what we know right now. They aren't abstract dollars. Federal funds support services our community relies on every day. The departments most directly affected so far are Human Services, Public Health, and the Sheriff's Office. That includes support for families and seniors, key public health programs, and parts of our public safety operations. These are essential services. And when federal changes come with little lead time, it makes preparation critical. In early 2025, we started to see signs of federal changes, and we chose to act proactively. We established a federal funding task force to monitor federal actions, track state and federal communications, and assess potential impacts to Jefferson County, including executive orders, federal legislation such as H.R. 1, and state level effects that could have impacts that would flow down to us at the county level. The task force includes the county attorney's office, finance, and the most affected departments. So what that means is that legal, financial, and operational leaders are reviewing developments together in real time. When a new federal action occurs, we ask 3 questions. 1, what does this mean for our funding? 2, how quickly could it affect us? And 3, who would feel the impact first? We then analyze the fiscal implications, coordinate next steps, and keep the board informed so decisions can be made with timely and accurate information. Funding reductions don't show up neatly on a spreadsheet. They affect people. Just one moment. Our goal is to anticipate disruptions early and mitigate impacts whenever possible. We can't control federal policy decisions, but we can control how prepared we are. This is a rapidly evolving environment, and we're staying coordinated, transparent, and focused on protecting essential services, particularly for our most vulnerable residents, while safeguarding the county's long-term financial stability.
That is a very comprehensive discussion of our federal task force. Thank you so much for filling in the gaps there. And it's a very valuable tool for us, particularly as we are trying to make policy decisions around those potential cuts. One thing that's important to note, the county does not control Medicaid. That Medicaid benefit design or federal funding decisions are out of our county control, but we do control how we deploy our local resources, how we prioritize our services, and how we support residents through these very difficult transitions. So speaking of Medicaid, Gina, what kind of Medicaid and federal funding changes are confirmed today, and which of those are still proposed or evolving? And before you start, maybe you can give us a little idea about your background and your connection to these issues.
Thank you, Commissioner. So my background with human services as a whole is that I've been with the county for, I believe, almost 23 years in human services and advocating at the state and federal level for the programs that affect our community. And then as far as what we know today, we know that there will be cost shifts for SNAP benefits and administration from the federal government to the state. Locally in Jefferson County, this is almost $12 million. But what is unclear is how much of that will be passed down to counties. We know that the state will have that burden across the state. The state is currently going through the budget process for next state fiscal year, which is quite a bit going on in it when it comes to human services. There are proposed cuts in the Medicaid rates and services, cost shifts from the state to counties for subsidized adoption and relative guardianship households, potential reductions to child welfare kinship payments, as well as proposed changes for how we serve the community. We're also monitoring the state's ability to draw down federal funds that have been authorized by Congress. Thank you.
And it's really good that you're pointing out these cost shifts, because when those cost shifts happen from the state to the counties, it creates a bind for counties, because then we have to figure out how we're going to adjust our own budgets in order to meet those needs, and we can't always do that. So it's really good that we are trying to keep an eye on what is happening at the state level and trying to push back a little bit against those cost shifts. Let's move to another area of our human services, and that's our case management agency. So Tim, can you talk a little bit about how these changes are impacting our case management agency, and what is your department doing to keep an eye on that at the moment? And then just by way of background, just to make sure that people understand what is case management and what's the connection to this conversation that we're having around Medicaid.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's the place to start with this without question. If you really want to have a conversation today about where the rubber meets the road.
Hey, Tim, excuse me. Can you please turn your mic on? Sorry to
I
interrupt.
thought it did. Its green light is on. So, okay. My apologies, but where the rubber meets the road is who are the vulnerable population that we're talking about? We keep talking about vulnerable citizens in Jefferson County, and the case management agency as it exists right now, we do serve about 4,300 members of the most vulnerable people in our community. What do I mean by that? These are folks that have some sort of disability. So we have coverages, Medicaid coverages for people with spinal cord injuries, people with brain injuries. Our entire intellectual and developmental disability population is within the case management agency, and we provide these folks with services. Our North Star in the case management agency is to make sure that the people that we serve in Jefferson County are able to live their life the way they choose to live their lives in the community, being a productive member of our community, and being able to have their needs met outside of institutional settings. So when we're talking about this vulnerable population, we're talking about people that are living with significant disabilities and do not have the financial resources, insurance programs, and that kind of thing to kind of cover those needs. So as you were talking about the gap in the funding with the state, one of the areas they looked at first and foremost was Medicaid and long-term care is what we call it. It's very expensive. I will say that it's not nearly as expensive to make sure that people are living in the community as it would be to have these folks living in perhaps hospitals or institutions. But the state has looked to try to make some cuts in our Medicaid, some of our services, some of our rates. And the concerning part for me, at least as I look into these cuts, is they seem to be very focused on family caregivers, as far as you're a daughter staying home and caring for your mother, or you have a child that is developmentally disabled and you need to not work, but you need to be able to go and care for that child. A lot of the services, there's 6 services that they're looking at adjusting and kind of redoing. And of those services, those are services that get people out into the community, that get them out and engaged, that allow them to live on their own and have a homemaker come in or a personal caregiver come in. And so we are concerned about those cuts. The cuts are measured cuts right now, but they are still dramatic when it comes to that person and their day-to-day life with their child, their day-to-day life with whoever they're caring for, or for that person themselves, being able to meet their daily needs.
And the Board of County Commissioners, we are also concerned as well about the human impact of those to our families that are caring for their loved ones, because they can't always get that care in the community, and somebody has to take care of them. So
Correct.
And it really helps our system overall when we're able to have caregivers from within the home.
Family members are one of our biggest providers, essentially, and being able to reimburse those family members for the day-to-day tasks that they do, I think is an important part of them being able to stay home and care for those individuals. So these are real meaningful cuts to some of our folks. The proposed cuts that we're looking at, that our state's looking at right now, will affect about 25% of our case management population. The initial cuts are affecting more about 230, 240 people. So it's real.
So the Board of County Commissioners, we actually issued a letter to the governor's administration just in order to advocate and really uplift and highlight our Jefferson County specific data. So hopefully it is influential and it will help prevent some of these potential cuts. We'll see. So Tim, the next question that I have for you is a little bit outside of your area, but I'm hoping that you might be able to shed some light on what do reduced access to behavioral health services mean for our residents who are in crisis in our county?
Sure. I've been with the CMA for 2 years. I've been with Jefferson County for about 24 years. And I come from a child welfare and adult protection viewpoint. So I can't speak to this on level. What you're doing is you're limiting options. You're limiting options for people that are in crisis to be able to reach out and get help before something becomes a crisis, or if somebody is in a crisis, having those other avenues to go out and reach out for help is key. If you don't have those things, it defaults to your law enforcement and it defaults to your emergency rooms.
Yes, thank you. So Gina, we're going to go back to you for a moment. So what kind of timelines are we working under for additional reductions or funding decisions? Is this something that is happening right now, immediately? Is it in the short-term future, long-term future? What are we talking here?
So the state budget is currently going through the process for next state fiscal year. That's normally finalized in May, June at the latest, for those cuts to or reductions to be implemented in July. So those state impacts are coming sooner. Our federal impacts are a little further out because the federal fiscal year starts in October. So that's when we would expect additional cuts.
Okay. We are going to welcome to the conversation Jesse, who is actually joining us online tonight. So thank you so much for joining us, Jesse. My question to you is, who in Jefferson County is most affected by these Medicaid and federal funding cuts?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for allowing me to join online with you all tonight. And I wanted to bring a little bit of a different perspective to Medicaid outside of the very impactful provider rate cuts and impacts to the services that Medicaid provides for our customers. I oversee the administration of all of our public and medical assistance programs in Jefferson County. And I want to speak a little bit to the Medicaid changes that are coming through the HR 1 changes, or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed back in July. There were a number of changes made to eligibility that will impact or have the potential to impact several of our Jefferson County residents. And really what we're talking about there are folks that are considered the expanded population for Medicaid benefits. So this is almost 28,000 people in Jefferson County that were able to receive Medicaid benefits as a result of the Affordable Care Act that passed in 2010. This is also referred to as Obamacare. This basically allowed adults under 138% of the federal poverty level to receive health insurance. So statewide, that impact is closer to 377,000 people, but there are a number of changes that are going to make it stricter work requirements that could impact services.
Okay. So speaking of those impacts, are residents today actually experiencing service disruptions, or is this something that's happening in the future?
While we are already experiencing some service disruptions to our SNAP population, Medicaid changes are still in the works. A lot of those are in the process of being developed through a policy perspective and waiting on final federal rules, and system changes need to be implemented as well. These changes are sort of staggered, with many of those policy changes happening January 1st of 2027.
Okay. And then the changes that have already happened have been mostly to the SNAP program. Is that correct?
That's correct. Starting in November of this year, we had some stricter requirements on some work requirements, which is referred to as the able-bodied adults without dependents population, and some changes to the exemptions for SNAP that could decrease benefit amounts.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you joining us. Our last question this evening is to Tim. So we'll go back to you. How do limits on home and community-based services affect independence?
So if you look at it from that perspective of our most vulnerable folks, there are certainly folks that these cuts they'll be able to adjust to, and there are others that won't. That they're going to have to they're going to have to come up with other solutions for home care services, for personal care services, for getting their kids out into the community, getting their folks out into to engage in the world. So it's a real human impact. It's very much a yes, these will save money for the state, and at what cost, I guess, is what I worry about.
I really appreciate you bringing it back to that human impact. At the county, we sometimes get very focused on our budgets and on our numbers and the number of services that are being reduced and the percentages. But at the end of the day, we're really talking about people. So we really appreciate you and all of our speakers today. Thank you so much. It was great to have your perspective. And thank you for joining us to talk about this. One of the questions that we have gotten from the community is, how is the county advocating on behalf of those who are impacted? So I just want to share briefly that in addition to this close monitoring that we've been doing through the task force, the Board of County Commissioners has been actively engaging with our partners at the state, as well as our representatives, to encourage some strategic problem solving around these issues. We think that it's critical that we dig down deep and we try to come up with collaborative solutions in order to meet these budget challenges. If you do have any questions for us, though, in the audience, you can please submit them in the Q&A component on the Zoom. And with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Carly and see if we have any questions from the community at this time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Commissioner Zenzinger. We did receive a few messages on the county's new SpeakPipe platform. So I want to go ahead and get to one of those right now. We'll play one from Stephanie out loud. Yeah, we can go ahead and come back to that one, but we did have a question about the status of El Rancho in there, and what's the update on the El Rancho building in that area? Commissioner Dahlkemper, did you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure. Thanks so much, Carly. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeffco Commissioner Lesley Dahlkemper. And when we talk about El Rancho, let's just go back in time a little bit to the September Board of County Commissioners hearing. The service plan for the proposed Observatory Metro District was denied. This denial was just for the formation of the new Metro District and not a denial of any existing development rights. Across US 40 from the proposed Observatory Metro District is the El Rancho site, which was zoned for commercial uses back in 1955. Quick Trip applied for a preliminary application, that was in August of 2024, for a gas station that included a canopy for diesel fueling. In May of 2025, Quick Trip submitted its formal application for a site development plan, which is an administrative process with no public hearings. The formal application did not include the diesel fueling canopy, which we know community members are very happy to hear. In fact, we'll talk about a community event just this morning. Comments were sent back to Quick Trip in August, and they have been working to resolve the comments before submitting their revised plans. So that's more on what we're going to see in that particular area. But we also wanted to share with you briefly another issue that has been top of mind for our community and also for us, and that is the future of El Rancho, a much loved building in the community that holds a lot of meaning and a lot of memories for Evergreen community members. And this morning, commissioners were at an announcement in Evergreen about elements of the building that will now become part of a new public arts pavilion in Buchanan Park. And that is thanks to the dedicated work of the Evergreen Park and Rec District, the Evergreen Chamber, Quick Trip, and other partners as well. Efforts to move the entire building were stymied after engineers evaluated options. A number of people asked, can't we just move the whole building? But partners who are working on this determined it was not structurally sound to do so. So that is where we stand with El Rancho. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Commissioner Dahlkemper, and thank you to whoever sent us that question as well. That was Larry, and I think we actually had a few other questions on El Rancho, so hopefully everybody got a little bit about what they wanted to hear with that. And let's go ahead and give Stephanie her moment. She did send it through the county SpeakPipe platform, so we'll go ahead and play that one aloud. Commissioner Kerr, would you like to take that question from Stephanie on our Speak Pipe platform?
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we've, along with all of you, have watched in absolute horror and disbelief at the escalation of violence and deadly force used by ICE agents in Minneapolis and in other parts of our country. As Jeffco commissioners, it's certainly our sworn duty to uphold the Constitution, and we certainly condemn the flagrant disregard of constitutional rights, including due process, free speech, and unlawful search and seizure. And it's very, very clear where we stand. Jefferson County will not waver on our core values. We will continue to protect and advocate for all community members. We did put out a statement saying that. So as we say that, it's clear where we stand. And I know that some of our municipalities and surrounding counties have taken a look at that and also are looking at similar statements. We are also absolutely grateful for the professionalism demonstrated by our local law enforcement officers who continue to lead with dignity and respect in our community as they protect both civil rights and public safety. The fear and violence in communities across our country must end. We stand for human rights and those peacefully protesting in impacted communities.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Kerr, and thank you, Stephanie, for submitting your question ahead of time and for joining us tonight. We do have a few questions on our unhoused neighbors. Derek Hammer, he asked, can we provide unhoused neighbors with more consistent shelter during the cold season? We had a situation earlier this year where there was 1 degree above the guidelines for one day. It made a huge scramble for everybody, is what he said. We also have somebody else, it was Brad Bruce, who also asked, what's the county doing for the unhoused community when it's cold? Commissioner Zenzinger, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
So the county got together with our local municipalities and we put together a policy to be able to address when to activate our cold weather activation policy. And typically this season extends from October 1 to about through April. We have seen a couple of nights that have dipped down into some dangerous territory. And we want to make sure that we do not have any unhoused individuals that are exposed to these cold weather temperatures, putting their lives in danger. So when that happens, we have a series of steps that we take to make sure that we can get all of our unhoused individuals into comfortable, safe, warm sheltering during those times. We primarily utilize a motel vouchering program that so far has managed to meet most of the needs that we have had come up during these cold weather times. We also have a bunch of other resources that we have posted on our website. It talks a little bit about the process to receiving one of those vouchers, the times and the temperatures in which they are activated, and other types of sheltering opportunities as well, all throughout the county, from Evergreen to our Jefferson County Public Libraries to overnight sheltering. And we do this in partnership with our municipalities to make sure that we are covering the entire county during these critical times.
Commissioner Zenzinger, thank you. And thank you to Derek and Brad for submitting your questions. Now, I do want to transition a little bit, but before we do so, we'd like to ask a survey question. So you can answer this on your screen if you are joining by computer. You should see it pop up right there on your screen. Here's the survey question. How many Jefferson County town halls have you attended? This is my first one. 2 to 3, 4 to 6, or 7 or more. So please answer the question, and then we will release the results of the survey question later on. While you're answering that, just a quick reminder, if you have a question for our commissioners or subject matter experts, please submit your question in the Q&A section. All right, thank you for answering our survey question number 1. Let's move on. our discussion to the public safety power shutoffs that were conducted in December. Xcel Energy initiated these power shutoffs, and the impacts were felt by many here in Jefferson County. Commissioner Dahlkemper, I'll turn it over to you next. We are also joined by Nate Whittington and Steph Baker from the county's Office of Emergency Management. That falls under the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Commissioner Dahlkemper.
Great. Thanks so much, Carly. Good to be with you all again tonight. I represent District 3 or South Jefferson County, which includes Littleton, Morrison, Conifer, Evergreen, Pine, and portions of South Lakewood. Let's talk more about these public safety power shutoffs or PSPS. And we want to note up front that Xcel works independently from the Jefferson County government and the Board of County Commissioners. In fact, Xcel is regulated by like all utilities are, by the state's Public Utilities Commission. About 32,000 Jeffco residents and businesses were without power during the shutoff. You may be listening this evening, and you may in fact be one of those 32,000 residents. And we also know that threat of wildfire is also top of mind for all of us. It's a severe, real threat in our county. And we'd like to thank our community members for taking the time to share their experience about the power shutoff. I even had an opportunity during that period of time to talk directly with Evergreen residents and business owners. And I also want to thank members of our Emergency Operations Center for their tremendous work and response, and all the partners who were part of that team, from evacuating elderly residents in the Evergreen area to standing up a call center to answer questions live and in real time, and so much more. So we're going to dig into that a little bit further tonight and take a closer look at how the county assisted during this difficult time. As Carly mentioned, we have our Emergency Management Manager, Nate Whittington, with us, as well as our Emergency Management Supervisor, Steph Baker. Welcome. Glad you're both here tonight. Share a little more with us about why we stand up an Emergency Operations Center, and just briefly talk us through what it means for rapid response.
Thank you, Commissioners. I first off appreciate the cough drops; those were huge. So I serve as the emergency manager at the Sheriff's Office for Jefferson County. My team's role and my role is ultimately help the county prepare for, respond to, and recover from major incidents. Things like wildfires, floods, winter storms, large-scale power outages, all of them. That includes coordinating with county departments, the municipalities, the State of Colorado Division Office of Homeland Security Emergency Management, and our federal partners. We are lucky enough to have FEMA Region 8 literally within our county, so that makes that coordination relatively easily and seamless. But we go above and beyond that, and I think you'll see that as Steph talks about what took place in the EOC during the activation, working with our nonprofits, our community partners, our private sector partners such as Xcel and Core Energy, to try to relay the most accurate information and to be able to build a systematic plan around how are we going to address this. So Steph, go ahead, it's all you.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, my name is Steph Baker. I'm the Emergency Management Supervisor within the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. So my role, again, is to support emergency management operations and coordination through the Emergency Operations Center. And a big part of that is maintaining that situational awareness of what's going on outside, ensuring resource coordination, and maintaining communications with folks on the ground and the affected citizens. The big thing to note is that we do support our first responders out in the field, as well as those that are affected by any incident.
So the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, is essentially a coordination hub. We bring a bunch of people in, like you all do for these town halls, that have the subject matter expertise in the area of concern. Nice part about the way Jefferson County is structured, we pull in the PIOs from the county side to help with that joint information center. We bring in public works, we bring in open space, we bring in law and fire to bring it all together so that when we do need to make critical decisions, we have all of those advanced opportunities to make the most efficient and effective decision right there in real time. We have expanded kind of the capability of how we run the EOC. It's now, from my preference, in person, but we also have the availability if we do have a widespread snowstorm or something where it's not safe for individuals to come in, we can now conduct EOC operations virtually.
Nate and Steph, thanks so much for that overview. Take us behind the scenes and talk to us more about the kinds of assistance the county provided. What kind of calls were coming in to the center? How did you tackle those issues? We gave a couple of examples earlier, but what else would you share with our community?
Yes, Commissioner, as you mentioned, we did provide the support that you previously mentioned. So we have approximately 130, 120, 130 folks on the EOC team that we rely on their subject matter expertise. Some of the calls that we dealt with during that incident, we deployed a trailered freezer to the Echo Food Pantry. We supported the evacuation of an assisted living facility, as you mentioned. We also sent a technician to troubleshoot a generator issue to ensure that a comfort station would remain operational during the outage. As mentioned, opening a call center, we received 33 calls of information, mostly asking about when restoration would occur. And then we also deployed a 250-gallon water truck to ensure continuity of firefighting operations, and then a pallet and a half of potable water for citizens that were affected by a boil advisory. And one of the other ones I remember too is we deployed a generator to a local fire protection district so they could ensure continuity by operating their garage bay doors. So that was some of the stuff that we encountered and used our partners and resources to ensure that we could maintain operations and help the community as effectively as possible.
Yeah, we want to thank you so much, you and the team, for the immediate response. And, we really rely on our community. There are eyes and ears on the ground. So as we get calls from them, you're there at the ready to respond. And those are some tremendous examples of the work that was happening behind the scenes. Thank you so much for that. And while we can provide assistance and care to our community during a power outage, talk to us a little bit more about what the county does not have control over during a power shutoff.
Wind. We can't control the wind. I mean, at the end of the day, the power safety shutoff is an indicator or a solution that utility providers can implement when we know we are going to have these sustained winds. The reality of the situation is it's kind of a double-edged sword. We either take the risk of a down power line sparking another wildland conflagration fire where we're trying to do fire suppression in 90-mile-an-hour winds. We saw that with the Marshall Fire, Lahaina fires, East Palisades fires. So these are proactive measures that the utility providers are putting into place, right, wrong, or indifferent. The other thing we can't do is we can't control how big the safety shutoff area is. What we're seeing and kind of the way that the Public Utility Commission is leading guidance towards is we are going to hopefully get a map. A couple hours in advance, days in advance, we're trying to figure out that time frame that they can effectively start through meteorological forecasting. How are they going to do this? That map could be a very large swath. As meteorological data becomes more refined, more accurate, you'll start seeing a drop, hopefully start seeing a drop in the number of outages they're expecting. So we are taking the proactive approach of go big or go home, and start communicating that kind of information out as fast as we can to individuals, start ramping up pre-deployment measures to get comfort stations identified, to get charging opportunities identified for the community. What we can control is how we respond, how we coordinate services, how we support vulnerable residents, how we communicate that information, and how we mitigate the impacts of the outages as they're occurring. What we've seen over the previous power safety shutoff over 2 years ago now, back in April, we had a 2-hour notice that they were going to be implementing a power safety shutoff. At this one, we had a 72-hour notification from Xcel Energy. That 72-hour to us within the EOC and the emergency management is huge, because then we can give, our critical infrastructure sites such as, our facilities time to make sure generators are fueled up, make sure that we have what we need, make sure we have the supplies on hand. It gives us time to build that capability. I saw one of the questions in the chat that I think ties into this is, how are we looking at a long-term plan to increase or fortify our infrastructure upgrades? I can't speak to Xcel's plan. That is within their purview to bury their power lines or whatever is going to be the most effective way to do that. But what I can say is we are working internally within Jefferson County to look at our core critical infrastructure sites and how can we start fortifying them. how do we as a county through the Office of Emergency Management ensure we have continuity of operation, ensure we have continuity of government, not only from a government perspective, but within all of the critical lifelines, health and medical, public safety, water utility, electrical. If we can keep building those relationships and those redundancies, the consequence impact that we see, yes, they're going to shut the power off, but the consequence impact we can start getting ahead of. The other question I saw, and to finalize that, voice those critical infrastructure concerns about, the power lines and all of that stuff. The PUC right now, and I believe it's on the state of Colorado website, you can find the Public Utility Commission. They have an open feedback form that's constantly running as they're just getting into rulemaking process around these types of events. Please go to that site, put in your comments. I can tell you the Director White and I've had conversations about, I'm going to say, all the comments they've had in there. They take them very seriously and they actually do read them. One of the other questions I saw that was in there was, how are we doing resources for people and for people experiencing homelessness? We are really building out our comfort center methodology and systems around that. I know the county invested, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, funds to support, shelter sites. And again, one of those funding mechanisms and one of those reasons that we went after it and the way we designed it is we can use those tents as a place to put up places for people to come charge durable medical equipment, to come get air conditioning, to come get heat, to come get water. So we are looking into that through the after action process we went through. How do we start bolstering that capability within Jefferson County?
Nate and Steph, thanks so much. I'm watching our time and I think we'll move forward with some additional questions. And thank you, Nate, for grabbing some of the questions related to this topic in particular. I suspect we will anticipate seeing potentially more of these in the future, just simply given our wildfire risk here in Jefferson County and of course across the state. Also, we know that one of our own Jeffco senators, Senator Lisa Cutter, recently held a legislative hearing that she had chaired to garner community input as well. So please feel free to share your comments with us. We'll make sure to share them with Excel and with other elected leaders who are also working on these issues with us. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Carly to see if we have more questions we can answer before our next section.
Yeah, Commissioner Dahlkemper, thank you. And thank you, Nate and Steph, for joining us and going ahead and answering those questions that everyone submitted in the chat. So again, thank you for submitting your questions in the Q&A portion of this Zoom. We also received a voice message on the county's SpeakPipe platform from Harold. Let's go ahead and play that aloud right now.
So I think that it's a twofold approach there. Number one being, we are actively working with our partners in public health to get messaging out about generator safety within homes, making sure that we're doing it as safely and as responsibly as we can. The other thing that just got announced before I came over here was and I don't have it up, so I'm going off the cuff of my sleeve here, but Excel just announced their at-home battery rebate program where you can go in if you have a vulnerable medical condition, fill out their form, and that came live literally as of like 4:30 this afternoon. So utilizing both of those services, that is our attempt to try to get Jefferson County as prepared as possible. And just one last thing for Commissioner Dahlkemper's remark, we were potentially going into another PSPS over this last weekend. And we were ramping up and getting ready for it. And it wasn't until Monday morning that we actually got the word from Excel that we would not be part of one. So yes, these are going to be a commonplace. So I recommend if you do have vulnerable medical conditions, please, please, please utilize the resources that are out there.
And speaking of those resources, commissioners just received an email earlier today from Excel regarding Colorado's PSPS battery rebate program, which is now live. So to build on what Nate said a moment ago, Qualifying Xcel Energy customers who rely on medical equipment and live in the highest wildfire risk zones can now receive up to $10,000 for a home battery storage, sorry, not shortage. We don't need any shortages. Home battery storage system. And the program is designed to help customers purchase and install home batteries to withstand extended power outages. And you can, again, go to the Xcel website. It's myxcelenergy.com. Carly?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Dahlkemper. We do have a question in the Q&A from Laura Dean. And here she says, updates on safety measures in Deer Creek Canyon, how to stay informed regarding actions taken, incidents and injuries, need direct information regarding planning and zoning notices on neighboring development application. Would somebody like to take that question?
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. Hi, Laura, Lesley, talking with you tonight. First, let me recommend that you might want to share any more specifics around those 2 or 3 topics with us at commish@jeffco.us, commish@jeffco.us. I know that when it comes to safety related issues, drag racing has been a big concern in Deer Creek Canyon. I'm not sure if that's what you were specifically referring to regarding safety, but I want you to know our sheriff, Reggie Marnelli, is working with our legislators on a bill that would give law enforcement more muscle to handle these cases that are incredibly dangerous for members of our community. But if you have specifics around planning and zoning and more, please let us know. And for those of you who are interested in getting alerts about planning and zoning meetings or Board of County Commissioner meetings, wildfire danger, and more, you can sign up for 2 things. Go to the jeffco.us website and you can find our sign up for alerts. And also don't forget Lookout Alert. That's the best place to get information about emergencies along the lines of what you heard Nate talking about a little bit earlier. Thank you.
Commissioner Dahlkemper, thank you so much. And Laura, thank you so much for submitting your question. Now, before we move on to our next topic, I want to make sure we have enough time for it. Here is the results from our first survey question. So again, it was, how many Jefferson County town halls have you attended? 44% of you said this was your first one. So thank you so much for joining us all tonight. 37% said you've attended 2 to 3 Jefferson County Town Hall. So welcome to everybody joining us tonight. We appreciate your input, and it is very, very important. We do have a second survey question. During a public safety power shutoff, how would you like to get communications from the county? This is a multiple choice. You can choose website, social media, or text/email, which you would opt in via Notify Me. So go ahead and please fill out that survey question on your screen. Again, you can do that if you are joining from a computer. For our final topic, I want to get right to it. Commissioner Andy Kerr will discuss all things parks and open space and introduce our new Parks and Open Space Director, Aaron Roth. Commissioner Kerr, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Carly. I'm Commissioner Andy Kerr, and I represent District 2, the central part of Jeffco, including Wheat Ridge, parts of Lakewood, Golden, and Evergreen. And we're excited to welcome our new Parks and Open Space Director of Parks and Open Space, Aaron Roth, for this discussion. Aaron comes to us with a wealth of experience from his long tenure with the National Park Service. He has already been a fantastic addition to our team after only stepping into his role on December 29th. So welcome, Aaron. Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that intro. And yeah, my main credential in public land management is my 20 years with the National Park Service, 10 here in Colorado, right on the Federal Center in Lakewood, and also 10 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. Very different community, but also a similar park system there. Golden Gate National Recreation Area is a park system that I worked at, and I'll draw from a lot of those experiences in this role. I did get my master's right up the road at CU Boulder. And my family and I have lived in Lakewood now for 10 years, and we really appreciate all of our parks and open spaces that both Jeffco provides and our cities and towns.
Great. Well, welcome. Part of working in Jefferson County is engaging in both public and private partners and helping those relationships thrive. Can you talk about your approach and give an example where Parks and Open Space is working in partnership?
Absolutely. At Golden Gate National Recreation Area, a mentor of mine there, the Superintendent Brian O'Neill, he was known as a kind of a partnership pioneer for land and open space management. And he used to say that, every time we in the government go out and do something on our own, even if we do it well, it's a missed opportunity, which really got me thinking that if we can bring a partner along in almost everything we do, that's going to help us sustain that success, because then we have more people invested in our success and invested us maintaining that within the parks and open space business. Building parks and trails and things like that is one thing, keeping them up is another. And so partners really help us do that. An example would be right here at Dinosaur Ridge. I visited earlier this week and took a tour. This is a gem of a park and open space in the county. And we have combined powers with the Friends of Dinosaur Ridge to operate that place where we serve over 200,000 visitors. And my team focuses a lot with their skills on the infrastructure and the resource protection of everything that is precious there. And the Friends of Dinosaur Ridge help us provide needed amenities and programs for those visitors. So there's plenty more examples that Jeffco Parks and Open Space has, and happy to be part of it.
Great, thank you. And they are soon to reopen their Discovery Center. I've had a sneak preview that looks amazing. And also, you may have heard of our partnership with Denver RTD, Morrison Golden, that we'll be doing a shuttle to the valley there with Red Rocks and Dinosaur Ridge and everything. So it's going to be fantastic. More and more partnerships. Also, Jeffco has a lengthy history dealing with mountain pine beetle outbreaks, and especially in our mountain communities. And our very own Commissioner Dahlkemper was recently appointed to the Ponderosa Mountain Pine Beetle Task Force by the Department of Natural Resources. This is a double-edged sword. We're extremely proud and happy that it's Commissioner Dahlkemper. Also, she got a point because we have this problem here in Jefferson County. So can you walk us through how Parks and Open Space is working to address this issue here in Jeffco?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do appreciate Commissioner Dahlkemper's leadership on this. We're glad she's representing us at the state level. First and foremost, about 25,000 of our 58,000 acres in parks and open space are forested. And so we are trying to lead by example. We know that healthy forests are more resistant to the pine beetle. So we have spearheaded over 1,000 acres of forest treatment to help those forests be more healthy and more resilient. And we're going to keep addressing that. Additionally, we're surveying our forests every season and directly addressing trees that are infected with the pine beetle before they spread. And so we hope to demonstrate best-in-class methods on our property for preventing the spread of pine beetle. Lastly, we are looking to support our private landowners throughout the county. And because we know the pine beetle doesn't care if they're on county property or private property. And we do want to lend our expertise and our resources to help private landowners address the pine beetle on their properties. Keep a lookout for our landowner assistance program, which we are standing up, which will help support our private landowners with funding and expertise.
Thank you. And we all just feel so lucky to have such an amazing park and open space system in our backyard. And of course, it's everyone's. It's not just your responsibility and your staff to take care of it. What can our residents of Jeffco do to be good stewards of our public lands? And I'm going to also partially answer this by mentioning that I was at the Trails Work volunteer event right before this town hall. I stopped by there to talk to some of your staff and some of our partners we're working with, and some people showing up to sign up to volunteer to work on our trails this summer. So, but with that, how else can our residents help be good stewards of our public lands?
Thanks for plugging the volunteer program. Absolutely. That is a way you can directly contribute. It is fun. You can help us fix up trails. You can share knowledge about nature with the public and help interact with visitors. If you just want to be on your own and not deal with people, you can count frogs or watch raptors. We have all those types of opportunities, and these are fun to do and a great way to contribute to our parks.
Great. Thank you so much, Aaron, and thank you for being. I'm going to help count raptors. I saw a bald eagle over on Union Boulevard earlier today, so that's one. I'm counting right there. All right. So I'm going to turn it back over to Carly.
Commissioner Kerr, Aaron Roth, thank you so much for everybody's expertise and for joining us tonight. So we do have a question in the chat. It's come to my attention that the public cannot hear our questions from our SpeakPipe platform that we're playing out loud. So we are going to go ahead and go to Laura Philbrook. She has a question that says, as a resident of Ken Carroll Ranch, we are deeply concerned about the potential 930-acre land swap with Jeffco Open Space. Can you tell me what your thoughts are on this and why this is up for consideration? Most of the Ken Carroll Ranch residents are not in favor of this resolution. We have yet to see any benefit from this proposal, and the JCOA joked they were getting something for nothing. Commissioner Dahlkemper or Aaron?
I can start
Okay,
with
go
that.
ahead. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we are hearing that feedback about the proposed concept of a transfer of the South Hogback property to Jefferson County stewardship and an exchange of sorts. And really, I think the most important thing to stress is we're all seeking the same future with that property, which is something that is conserved near to its current state or improved resource stewardship on that property. And that was the main focus of a conceptual discussion between staff about this exchange. Could Jefferson County assist in the stewardship of that property using our expertise with things like invasive species, trail care, and wildfire mitigation? That being said, in order for any transfer to proceed, it's only been discussed in a conceptual nature so far. And the current owners, Ken Carroll Ranch Metropolitan District, are currently listening to their constituents, and they would have to decide if that transfer makes sense for them. Additionally, our Board of County Commissioners have yet to weigh in with their decision whether Jefferson County Parks and Open Space is the right steward for the future of the South Hogback property.
Thanks so much, Aaron. And I would add the Board of County Commissioners is listening very closely to community feedback. We're receiving your emails. We want to thank you for taking the time to reach out to us. And the county also understands that the Ken Carroll Ranch Metropolitan District has scheduled a public committee of the whole meeting on February 24th at 5 p.m. at the Ranch House to hear directly from residents. And community input will help guide those next steps. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions in the chat. And thank you, Laura and Aaron and Commissioner Dahlkemper, for answering that. Now, we have just a few minutes left, so we're going to start wrapping things up. Commissioner Kerr, any closing remarks?
Yes, thank you, Carly. Thank you, everyone, for participating in tonight's telephone town hall. We never have enough time to answer every question, but your input is critical in all of the decisions we have to make, and these opportunities to engage with you are very important. Please continue to participate in these discussions whenever possible. Public involvement is fundamental to good government. We have open positions on some of Jefferson County's volunteer boards and commissions. These volunteer positions provide excellent opportunities for Jeffco residents to serve their community and truly make a difference. Please visit www.jeffco.us/767. So that's www.jeffco.us/767, like the airplane, for a list of the current opportunities. If your question was not answered tonight, please feel free to send it to Jeffco Public Affairs at jeffco.us. That's Jeffco Public Affairs at jeffco.us. Our public affairs team will work on tracking down an answer for you.
Yes, we will. Thank you. Commissioner Zenzinger, your final thoughts?
Yes, I did notice a few questions in the Q&A that we didn't get to regarding human services, and in particular around a phone number that does not appear to be in service. So I will make a commitment to work with human services to track that down and to figure out what the issue is there. Also, there were a few questions around flock safety cameras, and I would just like to refer you to a resource page that we have, the sheriff's office on their webpage. They have an FAQ that goes into great detail about how those cameras are used in our county, and it digs into a little bit of the details. So hopefully we can follow up or get you some more information about that by visiting that website. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us in our virtual town hall tonight.
Commissioner Zenzinger, thank you. Commissioner Dahlkemper, your final thoughts?
You bet. I'm going to be super brief. We just more than anything want to thank you for taking the time out of your Thursday evening to join us. Your questions, your concerns help us as Board of County Commissioners make better decisions about policy and more that affects your quality of life. So thank you so much for participating, and we'll be sure to work with our public affairs team to ensure all the questions that we weren't able to get to tonight get a response. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, commissioners, subject matter experts, all for taking the time out of your schedules to join us and answer our questions from our community. Again, the email to email us if you did not get your question answered. There's a lot of important ones in that Q&A. We just are out of time. It's Jeffco Public Affairs at jeffco.us. And you can also find a recording of this conversation and topics discussed. If you have any further questions, you can go to our website, jeffco.us/town hall. So thank you so much for everyone joining virtually for this town hall. And thanks everybody for joining us, and have a great evening.